Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ellis County Commission meeting, Tuesday, August 4th of 2026. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Bobby, if you could call roll, please.
Commissioner Nathan Liker,
Here.
Chair Joe Younger,
Present.
Commissioner Michael Burgess.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Order of business should stay the same. Okay. Prior minutes of July of 26. Anybody thing on that?
They look good.
Okay. The consent agenda.
I'll move we approve consent agenda items A through G.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Okay. Okay, introduction of new promoted employees. Jennifer?
Good morning,
Good
Jennifer
morning.
Taylor, Ellis County HR. And here this morning, we have 2 new employees that we've welcomed to the county over the last couple of weeks. And then we're also making quite a bit of positive progress on the open positions that we do have.
Danita Schrader, EMS Director. I have Corbin Brown with me today. She's going to start on our part-time staff. We're starting orientation today. She's been an EMT since 2024, and she has taken the EMT class, a EMT class, she just hasn't tested yet. So.
Well, very good. Welcome.
Okay, welcome.
Austin Schmeidler, Assistant Director for Communications. I have Emily Banks Edrin with us. She's been with us about 2 weeks, so we're excited to have her.
Good deal. Welcome.
Okay, welcome. Okay, budget third draft, Darren?
Well, I'll slow the meeting down for a few minutes, I guess. We'll talk about the budget. Darren Myers, County Administrator. Before you today is the third draft of the 2027 budgets, all the different budgets for the county. And there's a lot of bullet points on there. I just kind of marked several of the key highlighted ones. But at this point, when we're looking at the comparison of 2026 budget to the 2027 budget, there's only a slight increase in the budget by $5,221, which on a $34 million budget, pretty much call that flat. I know with some with the, as Jennifer said, they're making some progress on some of the new employees. Once we have some of those final numbers done, if we get them to us before the final budget, most likely the 2027 budget would be reduced and be under what the 2026 budget is. Like I said, it's only $5,200. So a couple different changes that the commissioners could talk about today could get us below that as well. But I think the main goal is when everybody's looking and talking about the county budget and the mill levy and all that, there's so many different confusing pieces of it. When you look at it dollar for dollar, the 2027 budget is nearly right at, or as I've talking with individual commissioners, a couple more changes could reduce that budget a little bit. But going over some of the ideal things or the main topics that the commissioners discussed at the 2-day budget hearing in July of last month. It's hard to believe it's already August, but obviously we've estimated for the increasing in the health insurance as well as the property and liability coverage for our vehicles and our buildings. But some of the things that I think are a key note is when we are looking at the bonds that the commissioners approved and worked through earlier in the year, the property taxes are not being impacted by any of the projects that are part of that bond. Those bond payments are not in any of the budgeted funds. That is not paid for by property tax, and that shows it throughout the documents. If anybody is of curiosity on how that's actually working and where it's in the documents, we can share that with anybody and explain it. Some of the big hits that we took this year are the personal property changes that the state legislation changed. Golf carts and boats and all those types of items are no longer on property tax, but when you take those off of one, it increases or shifts that tax over to real estate and commercial property tax. So that is one impact there. Oil valuation did decrease, so when the oil goes down, that shifts it over to property tax, and that's nothing that the county has control of. That's just what's going on yearly with the market. Interest rates, although most people like to see interest rates decrease when you're taking out loans and everything, but when your interest rates decrease, we have less increase in revenue, and that accounts for about $300,000 less revenue that we have in 2027. Salaries, all their adjustments would be moved back from January on their step adjustments to April, and then COLA would be not in July, it would be October. So both of those would be moved back to save some money throughout the budget year next year. We didn't necessarily cut the access transportation funding out of the 2027 budget, but we took away the specific allocation towards them and moved them over to the budget stabilization line as the task force that's working on access continues to work through their meetings. I know Commissioner Liker has some updates there he would like to share. Outside agencies had a slight funding of a couple $1,000 decrease, so those were pretty much flat as well. The Public Works Department reduced by the Commissioner's suggestion or request, cut their budget by $200,000. All of the transfers to reserves throughout the entire county, no matter which department it was, all budgeted transfers were reduced by 10%. The funds being transferred to the Special Highway Fund was also cut $200,000. And some of the smaller, very minimal items was the court's office took their repath, their budgeted lines out for the repath software for their corrections and stuff that they deal with in the courts, remove some uniform expenses from the sheriff's budget, and then you did increase a little bit to the sales tax transfer from sales tax fund to the general fund to help offset a software purchase, so that way it didn't impact property taxes. With that, there was only a couple items that were requested that are not included in your budget. We're still looking at the health department and their fees for services, vaccinations, different services that they provide. Met for several hours yesterday. I don't know if we'll have enough completed to have a good breakdown of what 2027 may look like. That may be an ongoing process, but we're still working through that. The budget does not include a position to help start maintaining the Ellis County Fairgrounds, all the buildings and the 80 acres that are out there. As well as it does not include funding for the new records management system for the county. So that's still budgeted out several years, but there's no funding set aside to start chipping away at that purchase. So with that, that's the general fund. The county fire department budget hasn't changed. That's only a $1,200 difference from one year to the next. So that's pretty much flat. And the solid waste budget has not changed as well. That's a non-property tax budget. Those fees are collected 100% by the services and they provide and the residents that go out there and pay for that service. But that budget does change. If you remember, we're going to draw down the unencumbered cash to help do some repairs and create some efficiencies with the transfer station and repair the concrete floor that's being worn down. But with that, that's a very quick recap of what progress the commission made on the budget. And the next couple steps were on August 4th. This was actually not on our budget calendar, but due to the amount of cuts and the direction the commission worked for, we put this on the budget to have another discussion. Next week is August the 11th. At that point, it would be nice to have all the final draft done, because at the third commission meeting in August is when the commissioners will authorize the publication for the clerk to publish it in the paper. And at that point, it's not that you can't make any changes, but you can't increase. You can only continue to decrease the budget at that point. And then at the September 8th or 9th, whichever Tuesday that is, I think it's the 8th. That September 8th commission meeting is the actual revenue neutral rate and budget hearings and voting for the adoption of the budgets. With that, I'll take any questions or any changes or discussion that the commission would like to see on the budget.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll give my, at this point, I'll give my update on the Access Transportation Task Force. We met a week ago and working through a number of issues, and it took quite a while. We made a lot of progress, but we finally come up to what happened. Prior to 2020, Access Public Transportation had the funds to account for everything, and then up until last year, so 2020 came, COVID is more or less what happened. There's a lot of things that changed because of COVID, everybody's life. But what happened with that, they had some unencumbered cash come into there, and they made reserves out of it. And then they've been living off the reserves. While things have changed, and now they're running out of reserves. So that is where where they're asked is they're short on money. There's been a change, but it goes back. It kind of predates the COVID on some of the services that were provided. You may all remember Safe Ride. That was canceled during COVID. The Safe Ride was more or less a gap that what we're experiencing now on their shortcomings on not ridership, but where their earnings, where they were making money was the Safe Ride events. So we're working as a task force to kind of come up with some ideas on where we can stem that and fix that. But what is hurting is they're leveraging local funds against state funds to gain federal funds. And so the funding formula hasn't changed, but the income has, or the funds they had available have. So now we're working through the process to try and figure out, okay, what's needed, where are we at, and trying to do it at a rapid pace. That all being said, I know we have the money listed, I believe, in unencumbered or
Budget stabilization.
budget stabilization. At this time, I would ask we'd put it back in as the access line item for $50,000 to give this task force time to get this cleared up and get it figured out. We've got some positive. We've got some ways that we're looking at that could take care of this. And I will have more of an update after my next meeting is, I believe, next week. So we'll have another update. We're getting a lot of different information gathered to try and make some decisions pretty quick. So that's my update.
Does that shift anything it doesn't really shift anything as far as, or does that mean we gotta pull more from property tax?
It wouldn't change the property tax. We just took it out of the line items specified directly to access and moved it to the budget stabilization. So took 50,000 away from outside agencies and by 50, and then increased the budget stabilization by 50,000. So it's still in the budget at this point.
Has it been brought up, and maybe it's too early, that why we have these great big huge vans around, or is that part of the access to, like, if somebody just is not handicapped where they could just take it?
Right. So
Like a Safe Ride type deal.
for the dollars spent, yes, and that was brought up and discussed. The larger buses are about $50,000 more than getting a minivan that is handicap accessible. So it is more. They are looking at downsizing. They're looking at reducing the number of buses in the fleet. So there's a number of cuts that are looking at being made and changes being made to adjust to the what's actually out there. However, that all being said, with the closure of the grocery store in Ellis, there's a lot more people, riders coming from the Ellis over to Hayes. So they're looking at different options on how to do some things. They've looked at fixed routes. They've looked at just a number of different options. And as they stated, as of July 1, they stopped Sunday service, which that impacts people who, some people that can't get to work.
Mhm.
And they've got riders that are booked. They have riders booked rides a year out, is as far as they can schedule. So, but anyway, that's kind of where we're at. But in order for the task force, I think to not necessarily work with the proverbial under the weight or something, just I think we need to put our line item back in there to allow the task force to do some work and get it figured out.
And it's a service that we need to provide, and like I say, if you feel that we need to put it back in to kind of get them back on halfway online.
And we don't have to, and I don't believe, I think if we put it in there and say that it's there as an option, I don't believe that, and Darren can correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have to make the full $50,000 transfer at that time, do we?
No, if the commission does want to add it back in as a specific line item for dedicated to access in the annual subsidies line item, if the commission gives the direction, the county clerk's office just won't pay that one subsidy out until we have direction from the commission sometime in 2027. We can just, like I say, just not create a voucher for it in January. And if it takes you until August and the commission at that point decides to release the funds to them, we can have a commission meeting. The commissioners can direct us to do that. And if nothing comes of it, then the money doesn't get spent.
Okay.
It just sits there and goes into, roll over into unencumbered cash at that point at the end of the year.
But by having it as a line item, they can essentially show to state and federal that
Correct.
money's there. If it's in unencumbered cash, they really can't show the state that it's there.
Yeah, if you look at our outside
Yes.
agency list, it'll access, if you take it out the way it is now, there's $0 amount
Mhm.
set aside for it.
And that would be our hiccup is
Mhm.
Okay.
we lose the leverage to garner state and federals.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
But thanks for the update.
Mm-hmm. And
That's it.
I'll keep you guys updated as we go forward. So
That was a tough one that you jumped onto for being,
it took a lot of
yeah.
question asking to get to the bottom of where we're at and try and understand that. So.
At least you got to the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'll throw my 2 cents in here. We can go through and we can find, we could easily knock out that $5,000 and have absolute flat budget. But I don't know that it's a major, from my standpoint, that $5,000 from one year to the next is not a major enough cut to sit here and say over all the other, what, 5, 6, 7, 800,000 we've cut. I mean, we've done a very good job, and there's one line item we could cut the 5,000 out and never see, which would be our transfer to Fund 78, and it'd be done and over with. Or we can leave it in there and say we've made a lot of work and move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get just to say we did it, pat ourselves on the back. I think there's a couple ways to do it. One, we can kind of see where the employee stuff falls, and that should help us, or reduce that transfer. The other way to do it would be a direct change. Would be we have budgeted 1.2 million from interest, and we could change that to 1,210,000, and tell Vern he's got to go find 10,000 more in interest. And I think he could. And I think interest rates are probably going to rise. So I think that would be also an easy way to do it. Now, again, as I stated at our last meeting, it's just kind of messing around on the edges and gambling a little bit. I guess we don't know what interest rates are due. If interest rates do continue to drop, then it doesn't change anything on the budget as far as we have to go figure that out later on. But that would be one simple change to get that 5,000 easily erased, is just change the interest rate up a little bit.
But just to point out on that, that's the change in the revenue side, not the expenses side.
right.
So if we needed to, if you wanted to say you want your 2027 budget under this year, you're gonna have to
We have to
cut something
Okay.
by $250 to be under where we're at. I'm fairly confident. I know I sent our HR director an email this morning. I have a feeling that those changes that are coming with the updated salary adjustments will get us there. But also, if we only cut another $5,250, I'm working on estimates at this point. So that could be, once we get the final this week with the final draft of the budget, get it all inputted in the state forms. Next week it could be $70 back over again. So when you start putting in your neighborhood revitalization program and all that stuff in there. But if the true goal of the commission is to get us just under, as an end result, under what the 2026 budget is, I will find a way to cut somewhere and work with whatever department that may be to get us under the budget and present it to you back next week.
I mean,
I like that idea, but I mean, if you,
I think
If that
I
can
think
be-
the other piece to that too is just if we do get that, if it's $5 less, if for the public, it's not just the fact that the budget is being cut. I mean, we've already cut almost $800,000 of what was presented several weeks ago. But you also got to realize, I think, as the public looks at it, is when you look at inflation and you look at our budget, if we don't increase it by roughly 1.6 million is what the inflation is saying we're at now. So we're already going to be doing $1.5 million less than what we're doing at the price of what the goods are compared now to what next year's budget is, plus the 800,000 that we've already cut. So that's 2.4 million unwriting the budget of where we need to be. So that could impact, these transfers to reserves could push off a road project, a bridge project, asphalt overlays, all those kinds of things. So it's not really fixing anything. It's just trying to get our budget back to staying flat and not expanding anything. And we'll see how it impacts future projects. So I think that's the other piece to it, is cutting the budget is what everybody asks for, but it also means cutting the amount of work that we do, which I know the commissioners hear more of what we're not doing rather than where the budget's at. So. But if that's what the commissioner wants, is minus any other discussions here this morning, I'll work with maybe one department. It could be two or three to figure out what that final number is to get us under what the 2026 budget is.
I personally, we've gone through and I feel we've cut departments and accordingly, I would hate to go back to, we're asking every employee to move back a pay step increase. They're cutting there, they're trimming there. From my standpoint, if we're going to make that cut, I would make the cut out of our transfer to Fund 78 of the $5,200 or $5,300, call it. And that's a betting on the long game. That's a what if later on trying to build a fund. I would not like to see, personally, I don't want to see any more cuts to the departments if we can help it.
That all could play in the commission's benefit too, because all the projects that the Public Works has identified in the Fund 78 budget, a lot of those are based on not necessarily getting the grants to help with those projects. So one of those, we have a $10 million federal grant out there that we're putting in now that is three bridges for almost $10 million. If we were to get that or partial to that, that would wipe out all the cuts that were made this year. But if we don't get it, we still budget those is if we don't get the grant, so that way we can still get the project. We just push the project back another year or two. So that way we can still get the work done.
On the health department fee change, maybe something we have to work on through next year. We don't necessarily have to budget for that change. If we decide to make that change, however it comes about next year, we can just do that. I mean, we're trying to get the budget done, but I don't know if we'll be able to know what that's gonna do.
At this point, I think it's just too late in the cycle of the budget process to figure that out. Part of the process is they switched to a new electronic health record system that allows them to schedule, digitize all of their vaccines to their services, to everything they do, which then transposes over into a billing. And they just started that in March. And as they train and implement and go through, it's hard to track everything that was in an old system that wasn't very well to track it. And then we moved away from VaxCare to have all of the vaccines ordered and stocked in-house. And then we bill for those and we have more funds back. And then compare all the amount of services that they do compared to what other health departments charge, to make sure that we're not essentially losing money, but at least staying flat on the services that we provide. There's so many pieces there. And then seeing what Patagonia is going to be on the back end once we start. They're just starting to receive the bills. One big fix that they were able to fix is, or one big change that they were able to fix is now having 2 clinic numbers, so that way they can start getting Medicare reimbursements for Part D, which that's also changing into the future. So that's a whole nother aspect to it. But we looked quite a bit yesterday at vaccines, trying to track the amount of vaccines. In 2025 was the first year fully out of VaxCare, so they were able to see exactly how many vaccines they ordered and how many they gave out. So there's not a long history of how many vaccines are ordered to know exactly what that expense is. So when you look at a large part of their budget besides their employees, probably 75% of their remaining of their budget is vaccine expenses, but also that's a large portion of their revenue that comes in is the revenue that comes off of it. So getting that side fixed as well can have a big impact, and how that impacts is not just their budget, because there's like roughly $275,000 in expenses for vaccines, but that accounts for about $335,000 in revenue. If you change that, and that gap moves or changes as it becomes more accurate because they have more history to know exactly what they're ordering, what they're giving, that also impacts sales tax, because the health department is not funded by property tax. It's whatever revenues and grants that they have is offset then with the remaining balance of sales tax. And that sales tax over the last 4 years is the amount of support that the health department has needed has went from just over $207,000 a year to $439,000. So the more sales tax it takes, it removes what we were budgeting from somewhere else, and that does impact property taxes. So it's just going to take us a little bit of time to get onto that records management system, to have a better billing system, also making sure we're budgeting properly for vaccinations as well. And that's also changed at a federal level of there's a lot of anti-vaccine information going out right now, and it's decreased the amount of vaccines that are wanting or people are requesting to have, which also impacts your budget, because if you budget X amount and there's a lot of anti-vaccine information going out right now, you still have it budgeted because you don't know people are how they're gonna react to that. A lot of pieces. That's kind of a long story, long-winded answer to your question, but we are working on trying to find some
I
solutions
think
there.
we just work on it throughout the next year, but not really try to capture that change within the budget at this point.
Yeah, it's.
You know, we're gonna do it.
I don't think we'll be able to get there. It would be a very uneducated estimate if we were to change anything at this point.
Well, I'll make the suggestion that instead of our $200,000 reduction to the special highway fund, we make it a $210,000 reduction, which secures us a budget lower than the 2026 budget.
I can do that. If
Okay.
you still want, if we get a couple employee changes, new hires done before then and it reduces it, do you want me to try to leave the transfer to Fund 78 as close to the same as it is after the current cut?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll give the commissioners unless there's anything else, but I'll give the commissioners an update later this week. I'll call you and let you know where everything plays out into on the state forms when I get everything inputted.
Okay.
County Administrator, any report?
No, sir.
County Commissioner report?
I more or less gave my report with the access
Okay.
update, so.
I appreciate that too. And for the public that's should be listening, so.
Just went to the masquerade on Main. I know Nathan was there as well. An event to raise funds for the High Plains Mental Health and Crisis Intervention Center. Had a nice evening, a nice meal, and nice prizes given or auctioned off. So continue to ask people to look at that facility and the need there and donate if they can.
Very good. I like the donate thing because if we all work together, it does make a big impact on our community and all the citizens that are here. I did attend the Ellis County Planning and Development, which that was kind of a little bit different deal. I Justin's out there, but and the next thing I did, I guess I can't say no. I did go on and I'm on the board on options. So I did do that, which it's another one of them things. If you can donate a little bit, it helps everything. So, and everyone. Okay, and then no executive sessions. And next meeting is August the 11th on Tuesday. Meeting adjourned at 9:03.